Hey, this video will be a walkthrough of how to create a simple cube in SolidWorks. So let's just start this project like we'd start any project by pressing New and then Part. We don't want an assembly because an assembly is a collection of parts that are joined together to form either a finished product or a smaller section of a finished product. So, for example, if you want to make a pen, you'd first make the parts, like the cartridge, the casing, the nib, all the different parts, and then you'd join them together and form the assembly. And we don't want a drawing either, because a drawing is just a two-dimensional technical drawing of a part or an assembly that you've already made. So we haven't even made a part yet, so there's no point in talking about drawings. So we're going to start a new part, press OK. And the way that SolidWorks operates is that you need to create a sketch, a two-dimensional sketch, and then you extrude that sketch and you make it into a solid body. And then you do various things with that solid body. And of course, the more things you do, the more complicated the shape that you get. So the standard procedure for starting any new part is you see on the left here, there are three planes corresponding to the coordinate axes. So the front plane, the top plane, and the right plane. So we're just going to pick any random plane. It doesn't really matter that much for the purpose of this video. We're going to pick the top plane, okay? So you see it's selected this top plane. It's now showing you the top plane. But we're not actually looking straight onto that. It's not very convenient to look at it that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the space bar, and it's going to bring me this kind of box that lets me select what direction I want to look at that plane from. And I'm going to select the top of that box because I want to be looking straight down onto the plane. So I'm going to press the top, and it kind of pans and readjusts the plane so that it looks like this. So let's start the sketch now. All we do is we make sure that we're in the Sketch tab up here, and we just press Sketch. So that's created an empty sketch. We need to fill this sketch up now. Now, there are various ways that you could create a cube in SolidWorks. I'm just going to do the one that comes to mind, and I'm just going to literally take the line. So I'm going to draw a line. And the idea is to create a square, and then you extrude it out and make it into a cube. So let's just do this. To zoom in or out, that will be useful. You use the scroll wheel of the mouse. So let's just zoom in on this a little bit. All right, so we're going to start the sketch somewhere around here, and you see we actually want to start the sketch at the origin. It doesn't really matter where exactly we start it, but it's kind of nice to start it at the origin. And you can see that when I move my mouse kind of close to this origin, it highlights it in orange. So it's going to kind of snap my point to the origin. So as long as that orange point is showing, so as long as it's kind of identified that my mouse is somewhere in this region, if I click, my point will end up at the origin. And that's just SolidWorks being nice and doing things for you, really. So now we want a line going up. We want a vertical line. And as you can see, once again, SolidWorks is being nice, and it's just predicted that since I'm kind of close to this vertical anyway, it's kind of predicted that I want to make the line vertical. So it's making the job easy for me, and it's kind of automatically snapping this to make it vertical. So I'm going to accept that, just click again. Now we're making a square, so we just go over to the side here, click, and go down, and then you click again, and as you can see, it's showing this construction line. So when it shows this kind of dotted line going over to the left here, it's identified that maybe you want to place this point on the same kind of vertical level as the origin, which is exactly what we want to do. So once again, we're going to accept that, just click, and finally we follow it all the way back round to the origin. And once again, it's highlighted that point there corresponding to the origin. So we're going to click, and that's going to complete our shape. And you can see now that it's a closed shape, and we know it's a closed shape because it's shaded in dark grey. If it wasn't shaded in dark grey, that might be a cause for concern, because maybe there's some edge that's not quite complete, it's not quite joined up. So then we go on the left, and you see it's kind of created this dialog box for the line, and we're just going to press the tick. We're going to accept everything. And just press OK for that as well. Now, you may have noticed that, okay, we've made a sketch. It looks like a kind of square or rectangle, but it's not very precise. We haven't really defined any dimensions, so that's exactly what we're going to do now. There was a reason why I didn't do this earlier. This is just how SolidWorks works, really. You create a sketch. You don't need to make the sketch precise when you're actually drawing the sketch, but once you've created that sketch, you then go in and you start defining dimensions and various constraints that link the lines making up that sketch. So we're just going to define some dimensions, and don't forget this is a square, so all sides are going to be equal. So as long as we define the same length for every side, we should be fine. See, if you press this button here, Smart Dimension, and you go over to a line, and I'm just going to press this line, and see it's come up with this. So if you just kind of release the mouse and drag it out like this, that's about fine, and then click, and you see it comes up with this modify box. So for the sake of convenience, I'm just going to make it 40 millimeters. Now, if it's already given you a kind of default unit like that, it just showed me millimeters. You don't really need to put in the unit. You can just leave it at 40, and it will automatically assume that it's in millimeters, or whatever your default unit happens to be in SolidWorks. So just press the tick. So, alright, that's that dimension defined. I could go around the whole cube and define every other side, but just to teach you a few different methods of doing this, I'm not quite going to do that. I'm gonna use something called constraints. So I'm gonna press the tick on the dimension box. So we've defined this dimension here, but of course the drawing isn't quite fully defined yet. And by the way, quite an easy way of identifying this is that there's a blue line here. You see, if you look closely, this line here is blue. All the rest of them are actually black. Whoops. So what that means is that if you try and grab hold of one of these black lines, you can't really move it. But if you grab hold of the blue line, well, you can actually move it. And another way of knowing this is by looking down here at the bottom where my mouse is. See, it says underdefined. So what that means is that we haven't defined all the dimensions yet. So there are still kind of loose edges in this sketch that can be moved around. And you don't really want that, because you might, for some reason, move them accidentally. And we want them to be, fully constrained, so you can't really do that. And also, of course, it's nice to be precise, because, we're engineers, we need to know things precisely. So, as I said, I could put dimensions all the way around and say that, oh, this is 40, this is 40, this is 40, but I've got a better way of doing it. All I'm going to do is I'm going to press Control, so hold down Control, and hover over this side here. See this side? Just press that side. And then I'm going to keep holding Control and press this side. And then release Control. So you see on the left here, it's shown you the selection. So line 1, which is this one on the left, and line 2, which is this one up here. The edges of a square are all equal. So I'm going to go down here, and you see it says Add Relations. And there are various different relations you can do. You can make them perpendicular. Well, the thing is, they already are perpendicular, so there's not much point in that. Some of these don't really make sense, or some of them would cause an error, like this is already perpendicular, and it's constrained that way because SolidWorks has already kind of snapped them to make them horizontal and vertical. So if you try and make it parallel, that wouldn't really work. It would cause an error, as you can see here. See all this yellow and red. We don't like those colors in SolidWorks. So I'm just gonna right click here and delete this. But what we really want is we want to make them equal. Okay, so make those two lines equal, click off it, and there we go. And that's literally it. We've done it. We've defined all that we need to define in our sketch. We can't move any of these edges or vertices. It is literally fully defined. And as you can see at the bottom here, it says fully defined. So that's great. So now we can exit this sketch. Remember, the side length of this square was 40 millimeters. So we exit the sketch. And now we need to extrude this sketch to make it a solid body. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to navigate this around a little bit. I'm going to press down on the scroll wheel of the mouse, and I'm just going to kind of move it around. And as you can see, it moves, it rotates. This is a kind of standard way of rotating things in SolidWorks. You just press and hold the scroll button of the mouse. So I'm going to kind of make it like this so that it's quite easy to visualize it sort of being extruded outwards and becoming a solid body, rather than just looking straight on at it and extruding it out towards you, which wouldn't create such a nice 3D effect. So I've reorientated this, and I'm going to go on the left here. You see at the top left on features, press features, and this is a very useful button, extruded boss base. I'm going to press that. It's automatically detected that that's the sketch that I want to extrude. It might not do that. It might ask you to select a sketch, in which case you'd just have to find the sketch that you want to extrude, click one of the lines of that sketch, and it's quite intuitive. It kind of gives you an idea of what it's going to look like after you've extruded it. So it's less easy to make mistakes in your extrusion. If you see on the left here, there are actually many different ways of extruding it. Not all of these make sense right now because, they refer to different scenarios. Like this one, up to surface. See, that doesn't really do anything. It doesn't really make sense, because what that means is that if there happened to be some other surface up here above this sketch that we made, the up to surface command would extrude that sketch and basically extrude it all the way up till it reaches the next surface in its path. So that doesn't really make sense here because we do only have one sketch. So we're just going to go blind, and what blind does is it doesn't really care, it doesn't really think about it. It literally just extrudes it however much you tell it to extrude it. So our side length is 40 millimeters, so I'm going to go for 40 millimeters. So I've defined the extruding dimension here, and that's it. We don't really need any of these other features. It looks like I've messed this up. Let's just go 40 millimeters again. Right. Yeah, seems fine. For some reason it's extruded it in the wrong direction. So what I'm just going to do here is, you see this button, reverse direction. I'm just going to reverse the direction of that extrude. It doesn't really matter, I guess, in the long term. It is just a cube, but I like it to be nice, I guess. So I want it to be in the right direction for me. So there we go. We've done that. All we need to do now is just press OK. So press OK. And that's it. You've created your cube in SolidWorks. So once again, you can use the scroll button of the mouse to move around. You can scroll to zoom in and zoom out. So there we go. That's your cube. It's a very simple design, of course, but this was really meant to just introduce you to some of the basic commands and functions in SolidWorks. So I hope you found this video helpful. See you in another video.